Hey, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you tuning in to this American Car Classics radio program. I'm Kenny Schofield, and with me is Andrew Coulombe. Hey, man.
Hey, man. It's
How
great
you
to be
doing?
back.
Yeah,
Episode 2.
It is number 2. I appreciate this so much, man. Behind the wheel is Bryce. He's driving us into success, as he does every day. Like I said, this is the American Car Classics radio program, and I really appreciate you tuning in to us. Andrew is new to the show, and I've been here for several years, but we've changed locations for the second time in couple years, I guess. So we're going to call this our new home, and we're going to hope it all works out for everybody. Today, we're going to be jumping into kind of where we left off. Last week was a big interview with John Craman, the voice of Mecum, and Andrew and I went out and we had a blast on Saturday. We saw 1,500 cars. We saw some road art. We saw a bunch of motorcycles and kind of some surprise stuff that we didn't really think we were going to see. But that's the joy of Mecum, man. That's the surprise of it. You think that you're going to find something and you're going to pop the hood and there's an LS and it's not.
Yeah, exactly. So,
that one.
So we're walking around, and it's amazing. We see some Model A's first, and this GMC 310 or 3100.
3100.
Just absolutely gorgeous.
Slammed to the ground.
Absolutely laying on the dirt. So these two cars are next to each other. Well, I think it was a Model T next to that. And then as you move down the line, it's just
the Coronet race car.
Yep.
I mean, an eclectic collage.
Yeah, just incredible. Because new Mercedes, there was a new Raptor there that we also got to see. Yep. But so as we move through, Kenny's walking me around, showing me everything with how they staged the cars to get ready to bring in. And there was a huge thunderstorm coming. So I'm sure they wanted to be moving along as fast as they could. But as we walked through, we started to move closer and closer to the main building. And we came across the Mitchell Estate collection. And this was a ton of cars.
Yeah, they were going to open the show with this collection, and we met a gentleman from up in the New England area. I don't forget, was it Vermont or something?
Vermont or New Hampshire?
Yeah, that is the Owl Heads group, and he was part of the aviation department. But he grew up with Mitchell's sons, one of his sons, and he actually watched this guy put the collection together and all that, and they're selling the collection at Mecum. Everything went at no reserve.
Yep, no reserve.
And I don't know how many cars there were total, but I'm going to guess that there were
close to 30 plus.
Yeah, and boy, was it totally different. The first thing we looked up at is this beautiful 57 Chevy, and it was I think it was an E-code. It was very nice. I'd have to ask my friend Ron Smith about that. But right behind it was another car exactly like it.
Yeah.
Same year.
Yep.
Same color.
Year.
We thought we were seeing double take.
Yep. 2 Thunderbird convertibles, this like salmon pink color.
Yeah. It was just crazy, but the collection was very, very big, and we met one of the guys that knew him growing up and all of that, and got him put the collection together, and now in its eternity, he's watching it go away.
It was interesting because it looked like some of them were drug right out of the barn, hadn't even been washed. I know you were a little concerned about that as we were walking by.
Well, they got the 303 crew out there, who is a detailing company and product base, and they do a contract with Mecum to wash every car before it comes in. It was almost like it was given, hey, don't shine anything on these cars. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if they ran or not. And I think that everything, certainly, if the price goes up when the top comes down, then you'd think that, I get to hear this thing run, I know that I've got a lot better car.
Right.
So it's always interesting, the story. But I think that they did pretty well. I watched several of them go through with you, and
they definitely sold them all.
Yeah, they definitely sold them all in the reserve, man. And what a gamble, because we saw some.
I was really surprised. There was a Range Rover that had come up for auction, right? Range Rover, not Land Rover.
Yeah, Range Rover.
And they started it at 50, and it dropped down to 25, and then dropped down to 10, and I think it sold at 10.
I think so.
And that's when we found out, or I realized, you just never know what you're going to find at the auction.
Right.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
That was loud.
Good times. All right, but then we made our way before the auction started. They were going to do some road art and some signs and stuff like this and everything else.
Yep. Saw some mini bikes.
We walked across the stage and met Frank Mecum, the owner of Mecum Auctions, and he's very personable. He recognized me, and I got you over and said hello to him and introduced you, and that was very good of him to take time for that for us always. We made our way down to where John Kramer was going to be, and then we toured the whole field, and that rain was coming. When it was time to start, we did get to say hello to John. He would just been on the show literally 3 days before this.
Yeah, hold on. Let me tell this one.
Okay.
So we see John, and he's getting his paperwork ready. And it's like, well, we don't want to bother him right now. And then we saw an opening, so we kind of sprung up on him. And he immediately recognized Kenny. And then he's like, wait, are you that guy that was on the talk show with me? And it's like, yeah, I'm that guy. Basically, like we're just miming back and forth. And then all of a sudden, he points over, and at that exact moment, a 69 Roadrunner had just been sold for like $54,000.
Plum crazy.
And he's looking at the car. He looks at me, makes the association, and then looks up at the board and sees that it's $54,000 because I was asking him how expensive they were. And for me personally, the fact that he remembered talking to just this guy, never met him before, and could remember the car that I was interested in, and the moment being that exactly. What are the odds? It was just an incredible memory for me.
That was awesome. And what I loved was that, when it all, he knew that I'd say, this is Andrew, and he's, but he's, 5 minutes away from going on radio with a TV with Motor Trend. And he saw the car, and he made it's like the lights came on. Yeah. And he's waving, not trying to shout and everything, whatever. We turn around and look, and he's pointing at it and pointing at the board and you. And when it was done, I think this is when you turned to him and said, this is why I said a satellite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he nodded his head, thumbs up, and off we went. So that was super cool, man. And John Kramer is a good guy. We did talk to him a lot. I talked to him through text a lot, show prep and stuff like this, but always afterwards letting him know, hey, appreciate it so much and hope you have a good stay here. And then we'll see you when you get back, of course.
We also got to talk to David Morton for quite a little bit.
Yeah, now David, he came up, he is what does this card say?
The manager of communications and event marketing.
He's the event marketing director, right. So he is the one that lines us up with John, and he makes a point to see us every time we're there. The guy is always around. He's always checking. He works so hard, but he actually came up, saw our shirts, stood beside us at the opening when they're doing that whole, and thanking the first responders and veterans and everything that they do so proudly. He came up and talked for quite a while.
Right, so Andrew, this was your first Mecum. I'm just curious, as just a car fan in general, how did it affect you? Like, what was the experience like?
To be absolutely honest, it drug me back into the culture because I've been out for a long time trying to save money and doing my side projects, things like that. And then this is the worst part. Kenny's like, hey, you see that number at the bottom right of the screen?
Oh.
That means that if you sign up through Mecum, you can make a monthly payment on that classic muscle car if you win it in an auction. And I was like, oh no. So then I told my wife, and as soon as I started, she goes, oh, and I'm not going to say the word, but she dropped it.
Yeah.
So there's still a chance I can end up with that Roadrunner.
Hey, and we saw cars that were going in the $32,000, and you could pay $400 a month.
Right. I'd rather have that than a new Mustang or anything like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because the new Mustang, it's maybe go up in 20 or 30 years, and you are young enough to see that. But to step into a classic car and know that you can fix everything that can possibly break on it in your backyard.
Right.
That's a big difference, man. And I've sworn I'm never going to own anything super new. I lied. I've got new stuff. But you want to believe that your grassroots are there, and that's just what you want to drive 7 days a week. So
yeah, the odds of finding any of these cars out in the wild for a reasonable price is getting hard to find.
But that's one of the big things that stuck with you, huh? Because we kind of started I started saying, look, this much money every week, every month, whatever. It was very enticing to some people. I'm sure that if you wanted the financing to go out there, and they do make it readily available. They even talk about what this is in euros and everything else money wise. So no, but it was the crowd was early on pretty thin on Saturday, and then it built pretty quick.
Yeah, as we were leaving, there was more and more people.
Yeah, and we went out there and we saw this Camaro with the multicolor headlights. And he almost ruined it, didn't he?
Oh, man.
Because I don't know if it was a big block or not, but it was a raspy motor, and it was a good-looking silver 68 or 9.
It was the LS. I'm sure we've got some footage of it and running. And, it sounds great. Looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't help but think about the headlights. And again, that's the user's taste. They can do whatever they want. It's just like Theo Vaughn says, look, I'm not going to judge you, but everybody else is.
All right. How about this? How about we didn't notice the cars much except because we saw the headlights from 3 rows away?
That's true. And they can always be changed.
And they can always be, shut off, right? I mean, you
or just leave them on one color.
Just on one color, right. But no, that car was good. There was a lot of beautiful cars. And we were surprised, right? I joked at the opening, if that was caught, that about this one, what was an Avalanche or something? What was a Scout?
A Chevy Apache.
Apache, right. And
so beautiful rims, like it's just perfect walking up to it. And then you get a little bit closer and you're like, well, I'm sure it's got a modern drivetrain. Everything else has been.
We knew what LS was. Well, we knew what LS was under. We just didn't know what LS.
And we peek around the corner and it's Mercedes-Benz. It's sitting on a 320 chassis, one of their smaller SUVs. Just beautiful though.
Done beautifully. The height was perfect on it. Ride height. It was perfect, except in the back. I think it had 2 little yellow lights, modern LEDs off of a boat trailer for a.
You were so hooked blinkers. On those things.
And I wanted to rip them off right there. But it was incredible to see it.
Before we go to break,
there's
something that Kenny was talking about that I want to check out a little bit. You claim to have a good impression voice of a certain person, and so I'm going to put you to the test right here. So let's take a listen.
Because comparatively speaking to the Macho Man Randy Savage, you are nothing but garbage, Nothing but garbage.
You are nothing but garbage. Oh, yeah, my name is Randy Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage. And if you want to come around my corner, and if you want to mess around with Miss Elizabeth, I'm going to tell you how it's going to go down,
Is that pretty good?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Not bad at all, actually.
So Randy Savage I grew up over in Clearwater, which is Greg Billings, Stranger Band and everything. And there was a place called Mr. Joe's Lounge on Madeira Beach. And one time my buddy Vance O'Neill, who I want to give a shout out to Vance O'Neill because he's going through a little bit of stuff. But we walked into the club. Greg saw us immediately. Brutus the Barber Beefcake was there. His name's Eddie. And Greg the Hammer Valentine. He was there and he had 2 blondes with him. And Randy was there and he was walking around with a bottle of Grand Marnier. And he went up there and he filled Greg's. And I ran up there and I put my glass up. He's like, no, brother, I can't give you this for the. And Greg's like, yeah, man, you give that guy this. And he's like, no, man, this is for us. He's like, no, you got to share it with it. And it was a big debate in the middle of the dance floor trying to get a drink from Randy. So good times. All right. So, I guess we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Look, when we do, I want you to stay tuned because this was just the beginning of it all. We're going to get into some NASCAR, and then we're going to go into some supercars and talk about this new guy, SVG. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is the American Car Classics Radio Podcast. Everything else that you want it to be. I'm Kenny Schofield, and with me is Andrew Colomb. We said we were going to talk about the NASCAR stuff. Last weekend, it got rain shortened, and as a guy that buys a ticket, you always hate to have that happen. You hate to have a race under a caution. You always want to race to the finish and stuff. 2 weeks ago, they did this thing, a road course, and we're used to a road course being on a track, Watkins Glen out in Sedona, California, but this time it was a real road course like the St. Pete Grand Prix, which is what I'm used to here in Florida. But it was, man, you said, Andrew, it was 3 different surfaces. Even though it was asphalt, the asphalt was 2 totally different surfaces.
Right, and concrete.
And concrete.
And water. Lots and lots of water.
Well, they'd had so much rain, the Xfinity race got shortened. In fact, that set some precedents because it was 5 laps short of halfway, which in NASCAR rules forever, you've got to run half the race or you start it over or continue it the next whatever. And they didn't continue it because the 4th of July weekend was coming up and this was on Saturday and they knew that they weren't going to have time on Monday because they got to break it down for the 4th of July weekend.
I'd also heard that they were having some problems with the sunset. that the way the sun was setting,
it
was going to be awful for driving.
It was horrible. Yeah.
So they had to cut it short a few laps.
Yeah, but NASCAR did run into some of that the next day, and then they were shortened up by rain as well. But it was a great race, and looking at it, I thought there's no way they're going from 5 lanes down to 2 lanes. One of the turns they were going to cut down to 35 miles an hour, and the top speed at 148 miles an hour. And I just thought so drastic, so hard. The asphalts we were talking about, that one was a new surface. I think they had 12 turns, and one of them was a brand new surface, and a couple of them were old. So remembering where you were on the course, that this corner coming off was going to have a lot of grip, and you could launch it, or that you were coming off of a turn and you were going to hit this old asphalt that was greasy, and you couldn't. You had to pedal it through that.
Right. I saw people pushing others into the tire wall constantly.
So, Kenny, are you saying that they had to limit their speed to 35 miles an hour for parts of that track, or are you just saying that was the fastest they could practically go?
That was as fast as they could go in some of the corners because they were so tight. They went from 5 lanes of racing roadway down to 2 lanes of roadway in corners because they were driving on a city street.
Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, Illinois. So that was kind of crazy. But I'll shout out Billy DeArt, and I made a post, and he came out. I made a post about the big one that happened, and it was 2 cars that got into it, but because the track was so narrow that they all came around the corner and they all stacked up. So here you had 12, 13, 15 cars in this it just looked like a driveway, like the Sonic Girl was going to come out and bring you some hot dogs and a shake. And Billy said that he was just disappointed and didn't like it, and just NASCAR's really lost their minds. But Chicago seems to say it was great. The drivers thought it was good. The drivers, they have all commented, Kyle Busch and everybody else, they're saying that this was a fun track to race on, and they had a lot of fun. Now, that's kind of funny because the transition of all of it is that a NASCAR guy didn't even win the race.
Yeah, and as a guy coming in from the Formula One world and sports car racing, I'm used to watching cars go around on the streets, and I'm not as big into IndyCar, but it is really cool to watch guys have to deal with these strange surfaces and something that's not laid down as tarmac to be a track. But you were saying that some of the people who are big NASCAR fans were not into this at all. So
yeah, not into it at all. Listen, the real mainstreamers of NASCAR that I know, everybody went away after February 18th, 2001, and that's when we lost Dale Earnhardt Sr., and it's just never really been the same since. We appreciate that in his fatality, they went and built an R&D department, a research and development department for NASCAR, and they learned about stuff. And they were already talking and showing the Hans device, and some people were doing it. And Dale was old school, man. He wore an open face helmet, and he just wasn't going to do stuff the way that they thought that you should for these cars. But it just changed after that. So NASCAR hasn't been something mainstream to us for really a long time, but I still like my Sunday sports, man.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say it may have lost a lot of the classic watchers because I thought this was fantastic. I haven't watched NASCAR for a long time because it's kind of like predictable in a way. I'm not saying that it's not challenging. Of course, it has its own difficulties, but this, with how narrow the field was and how aggressive these drivers were coming out, was a spectacle to watch. I was really surprised with how many wrecks. I don't watch it for the wrecks, but I was just surprised them burying these cars into those barriers.
Yeah, that car was submerged multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah,
all the way up to the roof of the car.
Yes, yeah, they're in the Gen 3 car, which they've been working on a lot. It's had inner wheel well fires, door panel fires, the foam's catching on fire, exhaust is running out. They used to split out one side, now they're splitting out both sides. They've changed a lot of stuff on these cars, and the safety, of course, is phenomenal. We watch people hit the wall at 200 with not much rebound, and they walk away from it, and it's just amazing. But Formula One, Bryce, I love Formula One, and I've watched it for a long time, and it is certainly a lot more Monaco and everything down. You watch around the lakes and the oceans and the old classic villages and stuff. I mean, it is road course racing. And that is what I'm used to with those. Those cars are half as much weight, twice as much horsepower, and the tires are twice as wide. And watching them hook, there's no lift or anything. When the NASCAR comes around the corner and he hits those inner rumble strips, it is half the car is in the air. And this suspension has to last, 300 miles of this racing. And that's just phenomenal to watch these 3,200-pound cars do this. And I know the guys take a beating and shifting. And now NASCAR is talking about trying to get away from shifting.
No.
Yeah, going to an automatic because it's just too much. It's just too much for these guys.
That's not even racing at that point.
I'm telling. Well, so for the people that don't know about it, your world's going to change even a little bit more because this is what it is. They're fuel injected, they're computer controlled, and at Atlanta, I was kind of surprised to see cars pull away, have big runs, whatever, because with the aero packages that they get at the super speedways, it's pack racing, and you don't get a lot of individual anything else, and there certainly aren't big runs. And at Atlanta, they had some big runs, but that was rain shortened again. William Byron in the number 24 car won that race, and a lot of people said, hey, they knew the rain was coming, and they fought to get there, and they didn't pit, and they didn't have the gas to go, and they weren't really racing. They were racing just to beat the rain, and that's kind of uncool too. But you outside sport and everything else, it's what you do. But what we were talking about the Chicago Raceway was that it wasn't a NASCAR guy that won.
Yeah. Australian
guy. He did the interview as crikey and stuff.
Plus, as you were telling me earlier, he had to make so many changes. So he's going from their Gen 3 supercar at 600 brake horsepower to 1,000 horsepower NASCAR over here. Also, he's used to driving on the right-hand side and shifting with his left hand, and now he had to make that change too.
We see ambidextrous baseball players or whatever, but how is that even possible in your brain?
It's not only that. Like, have you ever driven a right-hand drive car?
Oh, I've driven a right-hand car. Yeah,
okay.
Skyline.
The desire to keep drifting over because you're trying to get back on your side where you normally drive.
Absolutely. I'm used to the yellow line here.
Do that at 100 miles an hour. I couldn't imagine.
Well, we did talk about that on a road course. They're going to be back and forth and stuff, but just getting in the car and I'm shifting. No, I'm shifting. I'd go to push the clutch in and hit the gas or something every time, and it would just be
That's all the same.
Is it?
Yeah.
Clutch is on the left?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why it would be. If your gas is on the right, then why wouldn't you change the pedals around?
Yeah, I asked that question too to somebody before the show. If the pedal layout is the same on those cars.
So we're talking about SVG, who is Shane Van Gisbergen, and he is an Australian who's a 3-time World Super V8 Supercar champion. He's probably going to win the championship again this year. He has one more year left on his contract over in Australia. But this week, his team that he races with over in Australia said, we understand what happened, and we don't want to hold him back. NASCAR America, there's a lot more money in this than what he's got. And if he wants to get out of it this season, we're going to go ahead and let him out of it. And so now that's a bigger window of opportunity for him because during his winning interview, he said, I've got another year left, so a year and a half, and I think I'll be over here and try this stuff out. But to go from a car... And I don't know the weight difference. I didn't get to find that out. But their cars are four-door sedans. You open the door. You climb through a roll cage with a pinch bar, and you knock it back in with a cotter or with a key pin and stuff. But you get in this a sedan, so the car is not nearly as rigid, I don't think, as a NASCAR.
Well, and it also states that the Gen 3 cars are 100 kilograms lighter than the Gen 2 already. And I'm guessing that the 2-door would be even lighter than the 4-door if it doesn't need all the extra structural.
Yeah, right. A B pillars and stuff like that. So, man, that's a lot of difference. So for him to come over and do it. Now, of course, Kyle Busch said, I saw this guy at Daytona, 24 Hours of Daytona, and he was phenomenal. He was a phenomenal racer, so he can get around the big oval and not have a problem. And we're not surprised to see him win, although they threw this team together with one car last minute in the crew box that was new and everything else. This wasn't like they'd been racing all year long. First race together, communications, everything had to work. He hung around the whole race. He only led the last 18 laps or something, or 8 laps or whatever it was, but he led them very strongly. There was a caution there. The field was allowed to catch back up to him. He pulled away again. So all of that
was a commanding lead at the end of that race.
A commanding lead. And this is here again. This is not, you didn't put your best engine in this car.
Right.
This isn't the main team. I had 2 other cars on this team. But the guy, he just had to have been raging inside. I mean, just and the endorphins going off.
Knowing that it's so close to the end and you can see him in his rear view.
Well, the guy who was right behind him, when they interviewed him after the race, he basically was describing it as a fan. He's like, I was just watching the show.
Right. Well, he was watching this guy's career take off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just awesome. And boy, I forget who that was, another call out. But, and if you know, 772-584-1048. That's our hotline here at ACCR show. And so with that, I think we're going to go ahead and try to cut out and hit a little break. But once again, congratulations to Shane Van Ginsberg, who's been reduced to an SVG acronym. But he's going to be a name that's going to be local and known here in NASCAR in a year or two. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll do the last segment and let y'all get back to your lives. A lot of them are. This is where Bryce tells me to start talking. Sometimes I like to keep listening. That's Greg Billings. Love his stuff. Appreciate it so much. As always, each and every week you get tuned in to Greg Billings, and you can find him on YouTube. And he's got his own podcast now coming up. Maybe we'll get him on the radio and start talking about that. I think it's called "What the Hell Have I Done?" with a question mark. So pretty cool stuff. I'm Kenny Schofield, Andrew Colomb, Bryce Shanko on that side, and this is the American Car Classics radio program. I do appreciate you tuning in. As we said earlier, we have a hotline. It is 772-584-1048. And with this, I don't need you to call, and you can leave a voicemail, whatever, but we're not going to answer it per se. I want to get in there, and I wanted to get you to write me a question on text. I want you to send me an email if you need to, but I don't know if I remember my email address. It's over by Bryce, so he can pull it up and type in when he gets there.
You just reminded me, we had a free ticket contest last episode. Did anybody even go for that?
No, he did. His name is Terry Goen. So we did have a question. Where was Mecum's first auction? I don't remember the answer.
Well, that's fine. So Terry Goen
He
won
knew,
and he reached out through us on our hotline and texted us, and he got his passes at the will call window Saturday. Maybe he went out Sunday, but I think it was Saturday he went out, and I haven't heard back from him, so I hope he had a good time. We didn't see him there, but I do know that he picked up his tickets because David Morton let me know that he did. So back into Mecum, I guess, man. What hit you the most, man? And I know that you opened up with, we turned a corner.
I know the car.
And there was 50 cars. There were wagons. There were wood wheels cars. We saw the two Z cars, the 260 or 280.
Yep. There was a 240Z, the 432.
The 432. These were going to be out at Monterey in a month and a half.
Yep.
And they were one of the 432 was one of 299. The other one was one of 500. Yep. And they had
ZX.
No miles on them. And these were Z cars, Nissan Z cars, and they were fabulous. And I talked about how I owned one. I think you said you owned one, a 240 model.
I've had a 280Z, and I've tried to buy three 240Zs.
Three of them in one town.
Yep, in one town growing up, and it just never happened. It will. It will happen one day.
And what happened? You were out with your dad, or you were doing this on your own?
Yep. Probably even before I had my license, or I had just gotten it, driving past an old ice cream shop that in the winter months turned into a deer slaughterhouse.
Oh.
They had some great jerky, though. I love deer jerky. Anyway.
So does Tiana. That's funny, man.
So, it was like an orange creamsicle type of 240Z, and I thought it was great, and it was only $3,000, and my dad's like, you don't want that old piece of junk, like it's going to break down constantly.
Oh.
And then we moved on to another one a few years later, and it was white, and the battery tray had all rotted out. I'm sure any classic Z fans will know that is a constant problem with them. And then another one years later in the city, but it was in too good a condition, and I couldn't afford it, especially on my $1,000 car budget.
Yeah, right now you weren't doing a $1,000 car guy. You weren't doing that way back then. But it's great that that everyone has a story of where it started out with what car and everything else. And I don't know if that's the car that got you and started out during a break. You said, I love wagons.
Yeah, I do love wagons. There were a couple great ones at the show, but the car that stood out to me above all others, and it wasn't a Roadrunner, it wasn't even a Plymouth, was that 68 Camaro Resto Mod. Had a LS2 in it, I believe. I'm sure we can bring up the fact sheet on it. But it had a full interior makeover. It was shaved all over. Do you remember? It was like a gray / battleship color. Beautiful paint.
Oh, yeah. The one that was in the white tent and we went over. Yeah. It had handles that had the billet rivet. I mean, it was sick, huh?
That would be my pick of the show. I mean, the Apache was beautiful, and the merging of both companies was really unique.
Yeah.
But that Camaro did everything right.
Yeah, it looked like it was ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like the Battleship. And the Battleship Gray came in, the pickup trucks started getting in there, and people, Nissan, I think, Toyota started doing this stuff. And I started seeing too much of them last year and didn't like it. But on that car, I do remember that car, and that looked great. That was out there in that yard that we were looking, and that was a covered area. But, man, there were some great cars in that row. And we looked at, they had a GT40 in there. They had a couple of great Dodges. We saw that 157 Chevy wagon or something that had been cut out and turned into a motorcycle trailer.
Yep.
I mean, you could see anything you wanted there. I don't know. I don't ever want to build something ridiculous. I don't ever want to build something.
Speaking of ridiculous, did you guys see that thing? They called it the Hell Runner. It was a Road Runner where they dropped a Hellcat engine inside.
I hadn't
and
seen
they
it.
fabbed up badges and everything.
I didn't see it.
Hell Runner on it.
I didn't see it. I do know that Gas Monkey Garage built the Hell Wagon. I don't know if you remember that way back. I know you quit watching after like season 3, but they built the Hell Wagon, which was a Wagoneer with a Hellcat in it. That actually got sold to a guy here in Vero Beach, Indian River County, and he when he got he was so pissed off. He paid $97,000, I think, for it, and it had a stock tranny in it, and it was junk. And you get in it, and it burned up, and a lot of stuff really wasn't really. When we saw that it went to Todd Byron's Classic Restorations and Collision Center. Todd was one of the former co-hosts of here, and so we got to go through it, go under, see everything, whatever. And what does Gas Monkey do that's so fabulous? Nothing. They really just stuffed a motor in there and made a great TV show out of it, and probably got paid assloads of money for it.
Yeah, the money.
I'm sorry, Richard. I love you, brother. I really do love you with your Ferraris and your 24-hour, the 66 run and everything else. I'm stoked about it, but
the money's not in restoring the cars; it's selling it to Discovery or whoever's.
And
now.
And we're gonna get there and do that. And you guys that they're gonna come in there, you're gonna be like, man, we've been following them forever and everything. So just lock in. But when we saw this, we were surprised. Todd got done. He did a lot of stuff to this thing. He made it right, and then he put it through Mecum here in January, and it sold for $127,000. So he got the truck to where it was much better, and it was a better truck. But that's the only one that I've seen. So no, we didn't see that when we were there.
$120,000. That's what the new Wagoneers are going for.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they have one party piece. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's auto leveling when you go into camping mode. So if you park it up to like a 15 or 20 degree slope, the truck will auto level so that it's nice and flat and all the seats fold down so you can go camping in the back of it. If that's worth $110,000, $120,000, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's pretty neat.
Yeah. I'll get a hotel room near the woods. Call it glamping.
Jeez, for the next 4 years, you could do that.
Yeah. I need a refrigerator.
Kenny, you just picked up something.
I did.
It's a Dodge.
A barn find.
Oh, I did pick up. Yeah, I picked up 2 cars, man. Today was towing for Kenny Day. So I've got a customer, Ed Huffer, and we built him a 91 Dodge 1500 that he brought to us and said, look, I've got a dash to paint. And it's a whole long story. Maybe we'll get Ed here and talk about his truck someday. But he's had, and I've known about it, it's been sitting a long time, but he has I believe it's a 1990. There was 3 years run of the Dodge Dakota Sport convertible pickup truck. I think the mass-produced number was 3,200 cars. The first year was 2,800, and then they did like 900 and something, and then they did
single digits. I read online
800 and something.
It was pretty poor.
No, the second year was 908 cars or something, and the third year was only 8.
Yeah,
because they had to fulfill a contract. So I don't know how many are left of this thing, and I've always kind of liked them, and I really would love a 318 or something in there or whatever with that, but it comes with the V6, which is a 3.9 liter.
3.8 or 3.9.
3.8, 3.9. So this car has 120 some thousand miles on it, but it's all there and it's ready to go. And I'm gonna put a battery in it and shoot it with some ether, and I guarantee you the thing's gonna start up good and everything. But it's a cool little truck, and I'm
Dodge Dakota Sport, and I saw that in its original creation, they knew that there was a market for these things because there was never one before it. So they said, well, we'll corner the market by doing this. And I guess they did a lot of promotional things with surfers. So the idea was you could have the top down and the surfboard in the back of the truck. That makes a lot of sense because I see Jeeps go by all the time, but they're always just buckled up on top.
Yeah, or sticking way up high or hanging way out the back and what. So, yeah, but I was able to pick this up off of Ed, and I'm actually buying a boat from him, and I got a canoe with a little 6-horse, but this truck is very cool, and I've been asked already, what are you going to do with it? And I'm gonna clean it up and build it and paint it and keep it for a while. It's something I've wanted for a while. I've been trying to get this truck from him for about 4 years, so I'm excited about it.
Simple lift kit, off-road tires?
No, I want to drop it a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not into ruining a truck. I want it to remain that I can tow and put stuff in the bed and everything, but I'm going to knock 2 inches off of it.
Maybe a little bit more power, more than that 117 horse.
Stop it.
It's low.
Is it
Yeah.
that low?
Yeah.
Man, that's almost as bad as a 1990 Chevy SS 454 pickup. Yeah, I am going to pull the heads and do some custom heads, do a little port and polishing to an intake, get a cam in there for sure. I don't know about the bottom end, leaving it stock or not. I probably at that point won't, and probably do it 30 over and something. But I think that we'll have fun. Yeah, so that was pretty much it on the buy of the truck. And hey, so we're going to get out of here. Andrew, appreciate show number 2. Yep. It's going to become very regular and everything else. Bryce, as always, appreciate you doing us there. You can play us out. We're the American Car Classics radio program and podcast. Tell a friend, like us, shoot us a little something on the bottom of the page. We'll tune back into you.
Comments.
What he said.